Hello again, my dudes! One more build video for Elden Ring, continuing to use the DLC weapons. This time we are gonna go sorcery, but melee style. So we are gonna be using the Carian Sorcery Sword. Now this sword, it's quite peculiar. It's a thrusting sword. It scales S with intelligence, but even with this scaling, the weapon has only 574 attack rate when it comes to physical and magical damage from melee when one-handed. When two-handed, it's not that much different, 577. So it's actually quite terrible when it comes to damage, but what it does allow is that you can actually combine three things by using this sword. You can combine the sword, and you can combine the new Main-gauche, which has a special ability, as if you read the description, intended to be used in the left hand, thereby complementing a piercing sword or identical blade held in the right to enable a distinctive style of fighting. And that basically just means that you can actually power stance this thing and combine both weapons, although you are technically using two different weapons. Now, the sword itself, the main star of this show, the Carian Sorcery Sword, also allows to cast sorceries just by pressing R2. So it's a nice combination. You only have thrusting pokes as an attack, or with the L1 combined with the dagger. The dagger, I actually chose to put parry on it, but I would suggest that if you're gonna use this for PvE and even for PvP, it might be worth using something else. I was trying to get a parry with it, but unfortunately I didn't manage. I'm still learning how to parry with this dagger. The active frames of the parry are quite weird, and with a lag, nothing really helps to get better at parrying unless you actually practice with a friend. But going forward, let's talk about the rest of the build. Of course, I'm using a Hakasha complete set, not only for the style, but because it increases general damage. As you can read from the description, increases damage dealt to foes. So this is neither physical or magical, it's just damage in general. So this will allow for the spells to do more damage and for the sword to do a little bit more damage. Nothing major, but it does help. The talismans, we're using Radagon icon, which shortens spell casting time. Godfrey icon, because we are charging a lot of our spells, and the more you charge them, the better they'll do damage. We're using the Graven Mass talisman, which greatly raises the potency of sorceries, and the Shard of Alexander, that greatly boosts the attack power of skills. Now, the skill that will benefit from that is the actual skill that comes with the weapon, which is the Impaling Thrust. I didn't really get to use it much because I was trying to combine the sorceries I was using with power stancing these two bad boys. But let's talk about the stats. For this build I'm using, of course, at level 151, 55 Vigor, Mind at 21, Endurance at 30, Strength at 14, because it's by default 14, Dexterity at 19, it's one of the requirements for the sword, however the scaling with Dexterity is terrible, and Intelligence at 75. Now, another peculiar thing I want to mention is the spells that I am choosing to use. You can always choose something else, but you can see them there on my screen. But in order, I'm using the Shard Spiral, which basically just sends spirals forward. This can be charged to full potential. It does have a nice tracing. It chases the enemy for quite a while. You can cast multiples and they will follow the enemy. I'm using the Gavel of Aima, which is quite the nice hammer. This is actually amazing for roll catching. And I'm using the Gravitational Missile. This thing is absolutely amazing. The only problem with this I found, as you can see, when I cast it forward, it does 3 small explosions followed by a massive explosion, which is great. But when you cast it at your feet, look what happens. It does only the big explosion of the end. So this is actually quite good for when you're trying to get your enemies to come to you, and then you just suddenly cast it, you don't even have to charge it, just point it at your feet, and it will do about 600 damage most times. I'm using a Dua's Moonblade because it's an amazing sorcery, and it's nice for roll catching as well. The Carian Piercer because it just thrusts forward with the sword, and of course Miriam Vanishing because this is just funny to take to piss off your opponents. The Stars of Ruin because this is a must-have for any sorcerer, and then I'm using Renownless Twin Moons. This thing has quite a peculiar thing about it. This is not a charged spell. The moment you cast it, you don't have to hold it. You are going to be completely vulnerable during this period because, as you can see, your character is floating in the air. But I just discovered that even if you get hit while you are floating in the air, the sorcery itself will continue to cast. The moment that the spell is up, the sorcery will continue. So here, it's already cast. Even if you get stunned or thrown down, it's already there. It will continue to deliver the damage. And that's a good thing, because if you see you are about to kill your opponent, it might be worth to try to trap them into running, attacking you. And if you're using the aromatic, for example, you will be able to absorb the first hit. So what you can sometimes do is trap them, try to get them to come to you, and then when they do, you cast this, and it's quite hard to get out because it's quite a massive area of effect, and it does significant damage. It's worth doing. So that's pretty much the build, guys. Let's go with the usual suspects. I gotta say, this build performed much better in PvP than it did in PvE. Reason being, if you're playing as a sorcerer in PvE, there are many other ways to do so more effectively, with a proper staff and with the best scaling staff and weapons. But I really wanted to make use of the combination of these two weapons, number one, and I found that this works better in PvP, as you are about to see. In PvE, I also didn't perform quite well. I nearly died a couple of times fighting those two bosses, but it still got the job done. I hope you guys enjoy it. So as usual, let's start with the Black Knight, aromatic for me and the Mimic. I just actually accidentally consumed another FP restoration. I used the Flask of Wondrous Physique, and then I actually didn't realize I was not hitting him. But look at this, I thought I was actually hitting the guy. Absolutely stupid. The gravitational pull doesn't do that much damage to this guy because he's got the shield, so it's not really doing much. But the Mimic is about to teach him some pain, and I am already casting the Twin Moons, which does a tremendous amount of damage as well. Unfortunately, I did mess up quite a lot. I gotta admit, I'm not really used to using sorcery builds, so I do get a bit lost with the spells and swapping weapons and whatnot. But still got the job done, even though I nearly died here. As you can see, nearly got kissed to death, and it had to be the Mimic to save my sorry ass. As for the Chief Blood Fiend, again, call the Mimic. I actually messed up again, nearly died, because I was trying to buff me and the Mimic, and I timed that poorly. And then I accidentally forgot to swap because I wanted to use the Flask. Didn't go so well. The Mimic is already busy trying to do some damage while I'm just trying not to die, because as I said, I messed up pretty bad during these fights. It's not my forte to use sorceries, I gotta say, but I did try my best to bring you something new, something different than my usual OP melee shenanigans. But again, things are about to get heated. As you can see, she's completely getting trashed by the spell. The gravitational pull also doesn't really do much, except for the last explosion. That one does do much. I went with another Twin Moons. As you just seen, I got interrupted, but the damage is still there. And why not finish this thing with just another Twin Moons? There you go. And that's it. Although I did terribly, I still got the job done. But where this build is actually fun to use, I gotta say, it's PvP. Because of how long most of my fights lasted, I'm not gonna give you that many examples as I usually do, but I'll still give you a fair amount so you guys can see how it performs against different weapons and different scenarios. Now this guy was actually a sorcerer as well, so this was a duo of sorcerers. The difference is that that guy's got a Dragonormous weapon, whilst I got pretty much a needle for a weapon. As you can see, the trade here actually worked in my favor. I did more damage than he did. That spell does give hyper armor. I accidentally swapped the weapon. I didn't even have it in my hand anymore. I was unlucky there. If the gravitational had cast just in time, all I needed was a millisecond earlier, I would have got him. But again, he's spamming his spells. At this point, I'm more worried about trying to dodge. I'm trying to free cast this thing to try to get him to walk into it. Didn't go so well. Again, we are both casting stuff at each other. Just trying to stay alive at this point. He actually nearly got me here. I got lucky, I gotta say. Again, another cast of stars of ruin. I ran out of FP. He does the same. And he's gonna run out of FP eventually. Again, I nearly died. I barely managed to dodge these. And then he comes with a sword to try to finish me off. But I got lucky and I didn't die. And then I finished him off with the Stars of Ruin. GG. Now for the next one. This is actually probably one of my fastest kills. I don't know if this guy even understands what just happened. So I'm just casting the shard spirals, trying to get him to roll on to me and get some damage. As you can see, I'm now going with the power stancing of the weapons, trying to get some damage done. This thing did an amazing job of doing damage. I actually wanted to cast the gravitational pull, and I actually managed to free aim it, and that's how I got the win. Now for this one, again, don't forget to use the aromatic. In the arena, this thing is actually better than the Exalted Flesh, because the Exalted Flesh is exclusive for physical damage, and the aromatics give you just damage in general, which is quite useful in this scenario with this particular build. The fact that you get the bubble that protects you for one hit, it's actually worth having as well, because sometimes it's nice to try to power stance and just hyper armors through stuff. Again, a lot of rolling. He's managing to dodging most of it. As you just saw, I was using the L1 to power stance that thing. I got hit by the madness but didn't do much. This is when I free aimed this thing and it did a significant amount of damage, and I went there to finish the job with the L1 combos and another meteoric gravitational missile right in his face when he was casting the dragon spell. Now for this one, aromatic as usual. He's using the claws, and he's also using a bow with what I thought would be sleep. I was not wrong. He had sleep and bleed with his crossbow. He was pretty much scared of starting the fight, which is funny because he's the guy with the big weapons. Because it only does the one explosion, sometimes it's worth to try to cast it slightly in front of you, so you get all three of the explosions, plus the big one in the end of it. Now, he's giving me bleed bolts. He's not actually hitting much. He's not causing me a lot of damage, just chips here and there. But unfortunately, same applies to me. I'm not doing a lot of damage. I'm not landing any spells. Again, I'm not the greatest guy at using spells in Dark Souls or Elden Ring. I've always been a melee kind of guy. But I'm still trying my best here. That hammer, oh, I wish it had connected. Unfortunately, it didn't. It would have probably be a finisher. Again, he's using quick steps, so it's quite a nice advantage to have. But then that 800 missile was quite devastating for him. I think that was what gave me the win in the end, was because he actually messed up his roll and he got hit by the gravitational missile. Unfortunately, I messed up the roll there as well. I'm gonna cast some ruins, try to get the hammer for the win as well, because I thought the hammer will give me hyper armor, so I can try to get it that way. But then ultimately we rolled together twice and I just poked him with the R1 using the needle. Now for this one, again, aromatic, don't forget. Clean stones. Shard spirals. Fully charged. Try to get some chip damage going. Not charged at all. Half charged. Try to get a little poke here and there. But he's doing its thing. He's of course avoiding the spells. I would do the same. And as far as I can tell, he's doing quite okay. But I just replenish my FPs. I'm gonna go on the attack. I'm gonna try to chip some damage through his shield because I got magic damage on my weapons, both of them. So I just thought, well, in that case, if he's just gonna shield, I might as well try to get some chip damage through, which I did manage to achieve. Although my spells, as you can see, were all failing miserably. Stars of Ruin was also not doing that much damage, but I stayed on top of it, tried to get the damage done, and then that gravitational pull, boom, beautiful. I tried to land a couple more L1s, power stancing these two. That cost he barely escaped it, but then it's Stars of Ruin for the finish, and that's a GG. And there we go, another fight. Don't forget to use the aromatic, of course. This guy was using backhands with the buff that just covers them in stone, which increases the damage. He's playing just counter. He's not really engaging. He's just running away. So I'm gonna recast the aromatic until he actually tries to do something. I'm gonna power stance here just to do a little bit of damage, and I actually did like 1000 damage. And then the 700 damage from the hammer. But then this is when he just went full passive mode and then just started running in circles, which can be actually quite annoying. I couldn't land anything. Stars of Ruin. The Shard Spiral also not landing any damage. More Stars of Ruin, no damage. And here we go. This is pretty much this fight really. Was me on the attack and he playing counter, which is fair. I'm not complaining. It's just me being the Sorc. When I fight sorcerers, I normally tend to be the guy on the offensive. I try to play them to think I'm out of FP, which I was. But I was trying to go for the parry. Unfortunately, he attacked before I was able to get out of the animation to try to parry. Again, Stars of Ruin, try to get that sweet finish to finish this round. Not doing so well. Again, I have no problems admitting I'm not very good with sorcery in Elden Ring or Dark Souls. But you guys get an idea of how this build works and how it was that I used it. I finally managed to chase him and get him with a roll catching with the L1, running L1. Another fight, here we go. This guy, again, just running away from the spells, that's fine, I got no problem with it. It's their style, it's their choice. But again, this just goes to show that the boxes are a bit difficult. It doesn't always track the target nicely. He keeps interrupting me with the Captain America shield, which is fine. Got nothing against it. It's just it can be a pain sometimes, but considering it was recently changed, I'm not too worried about it. In any case, I'll let you guys finish watching this one. This will be the last example, because the fights tend to take too long, I'm afraid. I'm not a very good sorcerer. Please leave a like, share it with your friends, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't just yet, and I'll see you guys shortly in the next one. Take care. Cheerio!